we're pleased to see. Hello. Well, Julie, would you welcome us, please?
Of course.
Maybe open with some prayer.
I'd love to. Welcome to my church, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. Sorry for the reason that you're here. But we are here to honor the life of Kenny Smith. So if you'll join me in prayer, please. Spirit of life, we come together today recognizing that life is not being honored today, and that not all life is being treated equally or the same or as sacred and holy as you believe we should be treating each other. And so I would just ask that you would guide us in our actions, help us to stay hopeful that we can make a difference, that this movement will continue to lessen the death penalty over and over until we have eradicated it from every county in our country and ideally the world. And we remember that we are all inherently worthy and full of dignity and full of life and humanity, and that honoring that in one another is one of the most sacred tasks we have before us. Amen.
Thank you. Well, my name's Abraham Bonowitz, and I'm grateful for everybody that's come tonight. This is Gary Drinkard. And we're a small enough group so far. I know more people are on their way, but we'd love to hear who's here. So this is more of an organizing meeting in my view than a presentation. So if you're comfortable, we'll ask the media not to share people's names, but if you're comfortable just sharing even just your first name and how you come to be here and if you have a connection to the issue. And we can start right over here with Matthew.
Hi, I'm Matthew, and I'm here because I'm really passionate about stopping the death penalty and ending executions. I used to work for Missourians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty when I lived in Missouri, and I also have a pen pal who is on death row, who is clearly innocent, and so I just have a special passion about this and want to honor the life of somebody who unfortunately is being killed once again by the state in a really horrible way.
Hey everyone, my name is Dawson. I am the Special Events Coordinator for Project Hope to Abolish the Death Penalty. I started working in this space in March of last year when the moratorium was lifted, and then from there the subsequent executions that have happened since. So thank you so much to all of you for being here, and thank you for everyone for braving the weather.
Hi, I'm Lila Vandak. I'm Dawson's sister-in-law. I'm honestly just here because I want to do something and show change that change can't happen and that this is for a good cause.
Hi, I'm Paul. I'm pastor of Pilgrim Church, United Church of Christ, and just wanted to be here to share this time with people who care about what's going on.
I'm Gary. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I'm with Death Penalty Action. I've been working with Mr. Bonowitz there for 35 years and the death penalty. State by state, he's done a better job than I have. But he's been responsible for helping it to be gone in New Jersey and Maryland and where else?
New Jersey, New Mexico, Illinois, Connecticut, Maryland, Nebraska, New Hampshire, Colorado, Virginia, Washington.
And so I'm trying to be as supportive as I can with what he's doing.
Hi, I'm Allie Sullivan. I'm the communications coordinator for Death Penalty Action, and I'm here because I'm just absolutely horrified by what's about to happen. Of course, every single execution is really disturbing, and I've lost 7 people who I was good friends with to execution in the last 2.5 years. So I'm here to keep the fight forward in their memory as well as for Kenny, but I'm particularly disturbed by what's about to happen.
I'm David. I'm from San Diego, and I believe that the death penalty is the worst thing that we do in this country.
Chris Brown. I consider myself a legacy member of Project Hope to abolish the death penalty. My father was one of the original board members when Jesse Morrison started it. My father was executed in 2003 in Alabama. And not a lot of people at Holman that I still know, but Kenny Smith is one of them. I remember Kenny, and I have cards that he sent me after my father was killed, sympathy cards and other things like that. And just here to support an old friend and continue saying that this is wrong.
Hi, I'm Lily West. I think personally this is really unfair, and I think that people my age deserve to know and need to fight for the cause too.
Great.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm from Vestavia here in Alabama. I have my own nonprofit, Voices Behind Bars, where we help the wrongfully convicted advocate against the death penalty and the inhumane treatment of prisoners. And I'm here to advocate against this because this is absolutely abhorrent and we need to speak out against it.
My name is Gary Drinkard. I'm here because she converted.
Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you. I want to share with you, just to get us all grounded, this walking stick. Before I go, I just want to say from the get-go that we remember the victims. And in this case, tomorrow night, the execution is being carried out in revenge for Kenny Smith's murder of Elizabeth Sennett. And we believe that we can remember the victims without more killing. And without, whether or not they support the death penalty, which of course, in this case, we've heard from Elizabeth's sons that they do support the death penalty, but they've had to put their healing process on hold for decades. And what we know is that when you don't have to put your healing process on hold, when the sentence is death by incarceration rather than death by execution, then at least you know it's done. You don't have to wake up every day and worry about what's the next appeal, going to flip things over, and then have to start from scratch. And don't expect it to happen here, but we've seen it too many times where we get up to the day of the execution, even the moment of the execution, and something goes wrong. We saw it in this case. And for the victim families, that's like the rug being yanked out from under them. And I speak this not from experience as a murder victim family member. My family, decades ago, generations ago, we lost a lot of family members in the Holocaust, but that's as close to violent crime as my family has experienced, and I'm grateful for that. But so many others have had a much more direct connection. And one of those people is a friend of mine, a man named Sam Shepard. Now, those of us who are old enough might remember the Shepard murder case from 1954. Dr. Sam Shepard was accused of the murder of his wife, Marilyn Shepard. And at the time that happened, Sam Shepard was 7 years old, sleeping in the next room. And he woke up to somebody, an adult that he didn't recognize immediately, scurrying him out of the house. And all he was told was his mother had gone to be with the angels. And then his dad wasn't present because his dad was in jail and facing trial. And Sam remembers kids on the school bus pointing at him, saying, "Your daddy's going to fry in the electric chair," because that's what the headline said. State asked for death for Dr. Sam. And here we have Chris is here. He grew up with his dad on death row. Sam was lucky. His father got a life sentence instead of death. Okay, and a number of years later, his conviction was thrown out. A very famous case called Shepard versus Maxwell from the U.S. Supreme Court, which talked about the pervasive overreach, the circus-like atmosphere of the media dictating what was going to happen in that case. Kind of seeing a little bit of that right now with the Scott Peterson case out in California, if you've heard of that. But in any case, Sam grew up with his father in prison, his mother gone. Eventually, his father got a new and fair trial, and he was exonerated, found not guilty, and freed, died a few years later. But for Sam, all of this trauma he had pushed away. Until one day, when he saw the news, December 8th, 1982, the day after the first lethal injection in this country, in the state of Texas. And Sam woke up living in Boston, saw a picture in the newspaper of Charlie Brooks' two sons outside the Walls unit where they carry out executions in Texas. And he saw in those two little boys himself and what could have been him. And that's when he decided he needed to do something about this as a victim family member, as the family of somebody who had been wrongly convicted, as the family of somebody, as a person who grew up visiting his father in prison. And Sam became a bit of a seeker in terms of faith. He gravitated towards Buddhism. You may have heard the term "walk it off" in terms of dealing with your anger. Well, there's a saying in Buddhist teaching: "The hells of anger and revenge exit through the soles of the feet." And that talks about this walking it off, walking meditation. So Sam decided to walk, and he started his walk in Boston, and walked all the way to New Orleans in what he called his walk for alternatives to violence. And every time he had the opportunity, he walked every step of the way. At the end of the day, he'd stick a stake in the ground, and his ride would come and get him, and he would come back to that point and keep walking. But at the end, he timed his walk to arrive at a national anti-death penalty conference, and he put this walking stick, which he carried with him, into an auction that raised money for our work. And I went into debt to buy it. I got into a bidding war with a bunch of friends of mine. I didn't want it to end up in a closet. So I got it, ended up carrying this stake all around the country. It used to fly on planes with me before 9/11. And in a few cases, it's ridden up in a cockpit. But actually, the Dalai Lama has been in the presence of the stick. Bishop Tutu has held the stick, and a whole lot of people like you and me have had the opportunity to share in the energy that is here, that I believe is here, as a unifier for us. So if you need a little energy, you can take it out. If you've got some extra, you can put it in. But I want to share this and pass this around as we talk about this issue. And what Sam would do each of the times when he got the opportunity, groups like this, is talk about what it is to lose a loved one to murder and be opposed to the death penalty, and also what it is to grow up visiting a parent in prison who's there for the rest of their life. So we just send this around, and I haven't had a chance to share that in a while, so I brought it with me on this trip because I thought we might, and here it is. So that's Sam's stick. That's a bit of a grounding for us. So death penalty action is here because of what's happening here in this state tomorrow. And we've been coming here ever since the execution that took place in, we've been here a number of times over the years, and we've been working with Project Hope to abolish the death penalty, the anti-death penalty organization here, and other partners and allies for a number of years. But after that execution at the end of July in 2022, when the prisoner, Joe Nathan, is that it?
Joe James Jr.
Yeah, Joe James Jr. was, they came and got the media to take them to witness the execution, but they held the media outside, for several hours instead of bringing them right in to witness the execution. And it turned out, and we know this, that Joe had a last statement prepared, and he had something he wanted to say. But when they opened up the curtains and they asked him for his last word, he answered. They had already begun to push the drugs on him. And it turns out, we learned later, that they had poked him multiple times. They had cut him down to try to get an IV started so they could administer the drugs. And from that moment, that's when we began working closely in this more recent time to build the coalition. We call it the Pull Back the Curtains Coalition. Basically, a bunch of groups, different groups, were signed on in support of this with the call to end executions. But if we're going to have executions, then let's make sure that the media witnesses and public witnesses can see the whole process, not just when they open the curtains and everything's ready to go, but from the moment the prisoner is wheeled in his wheelchair, as happens too often in this country, or walks into the death chamber, that's when they need to see the witnesses need to be there, not just when they open the curtains and it's all ready to go, and then they shut the curtains when it's done. And you don't get to see what we did to this person. But at the end of the day, death row itself, and we're going to hear about this, death row itself is torture. And share this with you, David. Welcome, Jared and Dion, my cousins. And we are, so we wanted to make sure that the media and everybody gets to see what's happening. We're going to have a unique situation in this case tomorrow because the spiritual advisor to Kenny Smith is also part of our movement and closely aligned with us, and he's going to see that whole process. And he's going to be able to come out and bear witness to it. And we're going to come to understand a little bit more about what's happening behind the scenes in the prison. And there's so much more. We learned today from another prisoner that suddenly they're reshuffling a whole bunch of things that they didn't seem to have planned until the last minute. What's that about? We're going to find out. So all of this is to say that we started up that coalition, and then before the next execution, which went wrong, it was a failed execution, not a botched execution. The prisoner went back to his cell. Then they did it again. Failed execution, not botched, failed. Prisoner went back to his cell. Tortured, as they are, by this idea we're going to kill you, and you're strapped down to the chair, to the gurney, until it's time to, until they decide that they ran out of time. And that's the only fix, as you all know, that they made was to just extend the amount of time that was available to do it. Now they have 30 hours instead of being cut off at midnight. I'm not sure exactly. Do we know when they're starting the window? Is it at midnight tonight?
Usually.
Yes, it starts at midnight and ends at 6 a.m. the day after the scheduled
So
execution.
it starts at midnight tonight, right?
Yes.
But typically they tend to not start till around 6 p.m.
Right.
That's been
Yeah.
the trend as of late. But
And
we have
Alabama Supreme Court has given the governor the authority to take as long as it takes. It doesn't have to stop at 6 a.m. in the morning. If he's not dead by then, they can continue days if need be.
So, we have to hope and pray, as often as it is, that if they're going to do it, that Kenny doesn't suffer too much. It's really not about him. For us, for many of us, it is about the individual that's being killed, right? And of course, myself and Death Penalty Action are concerned about that too. But from a policy perspective, for us, it's not about how we kill our prisoners. It's that we kill them when the system is as broken as it is. And we can see that in this case. Kenny Smith should not be on death row and would not be on death row if he was on trial today because his jury was not unanimous. And a judge overrode that non-unanimous jury and gave him a death sentence. And that process, that ability to do that was outlawed in this state in 2017. So if this was happening today, they could not execute him. So that's one thing. The second thing is, according to the whole torture of it, Amnesty International has condemned death row itself as torture. We'll hear a little bit about that in a moment. But just the idea that he's already been through that whole thing, he knew, they keep asking the question about he chose gas. He chose it because that was the only viable option, the only option that was available to him, lethal injection or gas, you get to choose. And because he didn't want needles, he's had a phobia of needles for a long time, he chose gas, and they've come up with a way to do it with gas, and we'll see if they can manage to get it done right. Or, I hope that actually whatever they come up with actually works, because he should not have to suffer terribly long. The worry is it's going to be horrific in many ways for him and everybody that gets to watch or has to watch. They'll never forget that. And if you go on our petition page about the gas chamber, you can actually read the protocol from Arizona, where they use, there's Sonny Jacobs calling from Ireland. She's another death row survivor. In Arizona, they use cyanide gas, Zyklon B, like what the Nazis used. And that is an entirely different picture That's a gas chamber, an enclosed thing, and to read the protocol is monstrous enough, but to read the testimony of the people that watched the last gas chamber execution. I mean, I'll share with you, Arizona started back up executions about 2 years ago now, this coming May. And I was out there. Death Penalty Action goes out there and tries to shine a spotlight on these things. Well, we did it. The execution was in the morning. It just so happens right across the street from where we were standing was a Chinese restaurant next to the motel that we stayed in. And it smelled good. So we went there for lunch after we got done, packed up, and there was a woman there eating. And when we went in, they said it's going to be about half an hour. So we said, oh, we'll get something down the road. And she said, no, wait, it's worth it. So we waited. We ate. And this turned out to be fortuitous because before she left, this woman came over to us and asked, were we all here for the execution? Of course, we were wearing T-shirts and all, and yes, we were. She asked, was it a lethal injection or a gas chamber? And we told her it was lethal injection. And she was like, oh, I'm so relieved. Turns out she was a corrections officer. And she stood guard in the guardhouse over the execution chamber in Arizona for 7 executions. The first 6 were lethal injection. The 7th was a cyanide gas execution. And she told us that after that, after being in, suddenly she had to wear a gas mask in the guardhouse over the execution chamber. She said she still hears the man's screams. And after that, the next day she went and asked for a transfer. And that's another part of the trauma that we do, is ask state workers to take on the burden that you take on when you kill a defenseless human being. So anyway, that's a bit more than I expected to say, but this is the moment that we're in. Is now, I mean, we know there are corrections officers who, after these failed executions, retired or transferred because of the trauma. And on our board of directors and board of advisors are members of former executioners, people who carried out executions who have joined our movement. There's a number of them now. And some of them hopefully soon will come from Alabama as well. Because what we ask, Ron McAndrew carried out the last 3 electric chair executions in Florida, and he talks about the men he killed visiting him in his dreams. One of whom had a strong claim of innocence. Pedro Medina, he's one of those whose head caught on fire in the Florida electric chair. Anyway, lots of gruesome stuff there, but we'll hear a little bit of a different angle on that. What we wanted to do tonight was just share a little bit of inspiration, give people a chance to meet some people connected to this issue, and also give you the tools to do something about it. So I want to ask Gary to share a bit about his experience and hear a little bit from Dawson about what Project Hope is about, open the floor for a little bit, then we'll share with you the resources that we have, and we can all get back out into the rain.
Good evening, everyone. It is definitely a pleasure to be here with you guys, and only by the grace of God am I here with you.
Yes.
I mean, prayers and luck got me off death row. Good Lord, prayers and luck got me off death row. It's almost as though the appeals courts sets a stack on appeals over here and sets a stack over here. And they say, well, we're going to look at these and view them and maybe give somebody some play with these, if there's actual issues in there, we're going to view these. But those they're throwing in the garbage. That's actually how they, in my opinion, how they do it. I was arrested in 1993 for a robbery murder that I didn't commit. In 1995, I was convicted and sentenced to death row. On death row, I met Kenny Smith. When I got there, he had that big smile, just like you see on all the pictures. He was a good guy. I mean, when you get on death row, it's like us sitting here as friends, talking to each other, communicating with each other, laughing, smiling. Everybody on death row is there to be killed. You try to help each other if you can. I mean, if you can understand the law, if you can help, understand how to interpret it better than others can, you try to help them any way you can. Kenny was one of those guys. I mean, he would help anybody that he could. Born again Christian, went to church every Sunday. They had a group that come down there. Oh, I can't think of it. Anyway, it was a nice Christian group, and they would come down there, and Kenny was involved with them all the time. Project Hope to abolish the death penalty. I was on the board of directors while I was on death row. I'm on the advisory board now. They try to think of things as to right Christian individuals and ask them just to think about different circumstances. Tell them how the circumstances are there. And funny as it is, mostly the pen pals that we're able to get are from overseas or from the European Union or somewhere like that. Nobody in the States wants to write us and become friends, befriend us. About 2005, I joined a group that Helen Presume had started, Witness to Innocence. I'm on the board of directors of Witness to Innocence. We try to go all over, not only the United States, but all over the world. I've been to Rome, I've been to Paris, I've been to England, talking about the death penalty, talking about
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Absolutely.
We've got a call from death row here. This is
Okay,
Tom.
great.
Tom, can you hear me?
My name is Tommy Lane, and I just wanted to let you know Kenny was the kindest person I've ever met. And he's a real good friend to me. And I was sure he was too. He doesn't deserve this. The Military Association says the usual punishment to euthanize by gas. Why is the state doing that to the people in your state as well? And I feel I'm going to send off my sympathy out to his wife and just recently got married. So you think people, it's a question to give share of back. Yeah, all right, thank you.
Hey, Tom, thanks so much for sharing a little bit. Are people holding up okay there?
Yeah. When you talk with Gary Drinkard there, ask him to see if I can get his cell phone and bring him the call next week.
He's shaking his head yes. So, when you give me a call back, we'll set you up. But listen, thank you for calling in, and it was unexpected, but your timing was good. There's people here that are just grateful to hear your voice, and we're all praying for you and everybody else. Please tell people, okay?
All right, I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, before I go, there's a religious organization called We Care in Atmore. They have religious volunteers and became together yesterday. I told one of them to, about the vigil and asked them if they're from Pennsylvania. They come down. So if you can give We Care a call and put out an official invitation, that would might be able to get some more people.
Allie, can you be on that? We Care?
We care,
We'll
got
find
it.
out. Somebody here can help us figure out.
I knew we
Okay. Chris Brown is here too. He'll connect us soon. All right, thanks, Tom.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, Kairos was the religious organization that I was trying to think of a while ago. They go in there quite often, bring them some decent food. Mainly the only time they get decent food is when there is an execution. They will stop everything. They will go paint everything where the people, where the big wigs are coming in, so it don't look so nasty like it is. The medical conditions are absolutely non-existent. When I was there, we got to go out in groups of 30 and 40 to exercise. We had volleyball, basketball, or you could just walk around and socialize if you wanted to go outside. A lot of people stayed inside. A lot of people were introverts. And I mean, being on death row, a lot of them couldn't get it off their mind, and they become introverted and stayed in their cells 24 hours a day, barely came out for a shower. It just done bad things to people's minds. I was playing volleyball one day, got my thumb broke. Went to the doctor, see the doctor, and he actually went to the extremes of x-raying it. And he said, yeah, it's broke. And seeing how I was handcuffed and everything, he said, are you on death row? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, well, it'll get better before they kill you. And I said, Doc, can you at least give me some aspirin or Tylenol? It's killing me. He said, no, you can buy it on the commissary. And I mean, with the violence and the disease, nobody can live in one of those prisons for more than 40 years. It actually costs only about $500,000 to keep somebody in there for 40 years, where it costs millions to kill somebody. In California, it costs upwards of 5 or 6 million to kill somebody. In Alabama, it's about 1 to 3 million to kill somebody, and only 500,000 to keep them in there for 40 years. They have maximum security prisons where no one can get outside the cell unless they're handcuffed and shackled. And you can't, there's no possible way you could harm somebody handcuffed and shackled. Why they have a death penalty in Alabama? It's because it comes down from slavery. That's my opinion. It comes down from the slavery and how the Jim Crow laws acted, how they get free labor. Prisons are big business. You may not think so, but prisons are big business. And most of that money is not where you can find it. It's hid somewhere, but the politicians do get their share. Trust me, the politicians get their share. I would write everybody begging for help that I could get an address to, because I had good issues on my appeal. I had a friend that had good issues on his appeal. The same appeals attorney handle our cases. And like I was telling you a while ago, one stack here, one stack here. His went there, and he's still on death row. And thank the Lord, I'm free. I won my appeal in 2000. I got out in 2001. I had new attorneys. The first attorneys, the cap on their salary was $1,000. And that's basically all the work they did. When you're charging $125, $150 an hour, it don't go far. They didn't call all the witnesses they should have called. They didn't object to certain things that the prosecutor was putting up that was actual lies. There was no physical evidence of me being at the crime whatsoever. The only evidence they had was my half-sister telling them that I told her I robbed and killed a man. We later found out that she had got stopped in a traffic incident, found with some cocaine, and the police told her if she'd tell them something, they'd let her go. For whatever reason, I don't know why she didn't tell them it was Joe Blow, but she told them it was me. Told her I robbed and killed a man. I had just got a settlement from workman's comp, where I'd been fighting workman's comp for a year. I had just got a settlement where my oldest daughter, her biological father, was on disability. We had bought 14 acres of land, go build our dream home. Had a beautiful creek running down the side of it. Big rocks like that, a couple inches thick, we were going to build a porch with. We sold the front 4 acres off, had it cleared, sold it off. so I have a monthly income. I had just signed up for the fall quarter of polysomnographic technology, which was sleep disorders. I was getting a different location, had cash money coming in. I had no reason in this world to harm somebody, much less rob them. After 2 years, well, after about 6 months being in jail, sooner than that, after about 3 months being in jail, they appoint me some lawyers. These lawyers in Morgan County, Decatur, Alabama, the ones that haven't got a good practice, that don't make good money every year, they stand over in a line. The next one in line gets whatever case comes up. And unfortunately, I didn't get some that were very good. They had never handled a capital case. They had handled divorce cases, minor criminal cases, but they'd never handled a capital case. So after 2 years of waiting in the county jail, one more thing. While I was out fighting workman's comp, I'd hurt my back and my knee. I had to go to a doctor every month to get refills on strong pain pills and muscle relaxers. No jail gives you narcotics. No jail will allow you to go to a doctor and get narcotics. They allowed me to go every month to get my refills filled. They knew they didn't have a case if I was at my right mind, but I was taking the pills. I was in la land. I wasn't thinking, because the lawyers told me there's no evidence, don't worry about it. And I knew there was no evidence because it didn't do nothing. So I'm thinking, surely, half decent attorney or a half sorry attorney can free me. 2 years ago, court. Within a couple of days, I'm found guilty of robbery, murder, and sentenced to die in the electric chair. And I'm scared to death. I mean, I am totally scared to death. I'm thinking it is installed in my mind, if they can find an innocent man guilty, they're going to kill me. My wife had to sell the land. She's got 3 kids out there she's got to take care of. They were being ostracized. People would come to my house and kill the pets. They would knock out the lights on the outside. If they saw my wife working somewhere, they would go in there and get her fired. When she moved away from the area that we lived in, I mean, the kids were ostracized in school. I had good kids, but they were ostracized in school. Finally, she moved away, and they really didn't know the kids in school, so that was a little better for them. My kids were 6, 9, and 16 when it happened. My daughter came down here with me today, and she's wanting to get much more involved. She said what she remembers before I got out, the 8 years that she can remember, she said they were horrible. I mean, I cry often when I'm thinking about my kids. I cried often when I was in there thinking about my kids, what was going on, how they were acting or how they were being treated. I only got to see them a couple times a year because my wife and I, she had got with somebody after I got locked up. She had got into alcoholism because it messed her head up. It messed my oldest daughter's head up. She got into drugs and was going with idiots. But I would write everybody I could get an address for begging for help. Eventually, I won my appeal. And I'm begging my appeals attorney, give me some help, give me some help. I had written Richard Jaffe here in Birmingham. He had got another guy off death row. And I wrote him, and he didn't really answer favorably to start with. He said, if you can come up with my fee plus expenses, which was somewhere around $250,000 plus expenses. And I'm thinking, man, I can't do that. I ain't got nothing. I mean, I I'm a nothing old country boy, worked construction most of my life, and here I am here. I ain't got no political affiliations. You know, I can't send nobody to get him appointed. He believed enough of my story to go to Decatur and get himself appointed. Unbeknownst to me, at the same time, my appeals attorney, Brian Stevenson's associate, Randy Suskin, went to Southern Center for Human Rights and got Chris Adams appointed to my case. And when I went back for the new trial, they said, Drinker's got a dream team in the newspaper. And I really did. I mean, these were good lawyers. They went out and got the people, got the witnesses. We were able to prove that I was home, and it, more than likely it was my sister and her boyfriend that robbed and killed the man. And now with Witness to Innocence, with Abe, go all over the country trying to tell people the atrocities of death penalty, try to speak to our future, our leaders, our young children, and just anybody that'll listen. We try to tell them the death penalty is not right. Thank you. Any questions? I'll be glad to answer.
Questions?
Did you see any effect on the staff that attended to you? Were any of them involved in the execution team?
They were. They
And so
you wouldn't know them. They would choose them in secret.
Okay. But
The only really thing that bothered me toward the staff, most of them were decent. You know, we didn't give them no problems, and most of the guards at Holman at the time would have rather worked on death row than in population. Population was wild.
Yeah.
It was like a Tombstone in the early ages, you know, gunslingers, just idiots running around, sticking people. You had to have somebody watch your back when you went to use the bathroom. You had to have somebody watch your back when you went to shower in population.
Yeah.
On death row, there was never a fight. Never a fight the whole time I was there.
Right.
What's it like on execution night?
Day before execution, everybody dresses in their dress whites. They give us white uniforms to wear. Well, it's not uniforms, it's a white shirt, a white pair of pants. And that's what they give us to wear all the time. If you got sweatpants and sweatshirts, you can wear those as well. But the day before the execution, everybody dresses in the dress whites. The day of the execution, they dress in the dress whites. They refrain from sports. They refrain from any type of activities like that. And I think now they're doing it the day after as well.
This is voluntarily.
This is voluntarily.
Project Hope is doing this to be respectful of the person being killed.
Everybody in there is doing that to be respectful, not just Project Hope. I mean, when you first come in, Project Hope will call you to one of their meetings and ask you, tell you what they're about, ask you if you would like to be a member of Project Hope. And a lot of the guys that, they got so much on their mind, they don't. But a lot of them have sense enough to know that Project Hope is a good thing.
So, in the movie Just Mercy, during the execution, you saw everybody clanging on the bars of their cell. Is that actually what happens?
Oh, yes. I still have nightmares about that. Still have nightmares about them rolling me around there and killing me. But that, right, probably 10 minutes before the execution's to be done, everybody is beating and banging on the bars. I mean, the person around there in the death cell, they can definitely hear you. They know that you're thinking about them. They know that you're there with them, trying to hold their hand. Yes, ma'am.
Over the course of your time there, how many people were executed?
I think 4 were executed while I was there. One good friend, Brian Baldwin. I got really angry one morning and actually started to jump the guard. As we were going out to exercise, there were a couple of guards standing beside the cubicle where they stand in and watch. And they were laughing, and I'm nosy. I was kind of listening to them, and they were laughing about Brian wiggling when they were packing the cotton up his rectum. They don't put a depends on you. They pack cotton up your rectum before you sit on that electric chair or whatever they do to you now. I mean, it's horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous. It's not human what they do. And I know those guards have got a job to do it, but good Lord, I couldn't stand in there and watch somebody die like that. I could not do it. I couldn't do what Reverend Hood does, go in there and watch somebody be killed like that. I could not do it. And I mean, Kenny was a good friend. He's still a good friend. He's like a brother. It's wild. It really messed my head up while I was in there. Really messed my head up. I mean, I'm a strong individual. It doesn't much bother me, but that messed my head up.
Do you want to share a little bit?
Sure. You want me to come down there?
Sure. Chris Brown.
You were Gary Brown's son?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Gary was a good guy. I'm sorry.
You're in your church, you're fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm Gary Brown's son. And, my dad was executed April 24th, 2003. So he went to death row when I was 6, right at the beginning of 1987. He and 2 other guys had gone to do a robbery. They were on drugs. They were high. And went to do a robbery, and it was supposed to be we were going to get this guy drunk, and then, he passes out. We're going to rob him. It was a guy that they knew. And guy didn't want to get drunk that night. And the ringleader of the case said, no, we're still doing this robbery, and turned that into a murder. So that guy, the ringleader, the guy, and this is in the trial transcript, it's not just me saying it, I can show you the documentation. The guy who was the driving force behind it, the dominating personality, is just down the road to Donaldson doing a life sentence. And the third guy, the one who actually struck a death blow and killed this victim, did 10 years and got out on parole. My dad was the least culpable of the 3 and the only one to face execution, the only one that was killed. And I mean, that's the kind of system we have. It's just arbitrary, like Gary was saying. It's arbitrary. Some go in this stack and some go in that stack, and there's no reasoning behind it. My birth mom, who had been divorced from him for several years at that point, got pulled over and found with a joint at the same time that he was in jail. And they told her, you're going to testify against him, or we're going to give you the maximum possible sentence. And she wouldn't testify, so they did. She did jail time and 4 years probation for a first-time possession of marijuana charge, because she wouldn't cooperate. She wouldn't testify against her ex-husband. She said she didn't want to send my dad to death row. And he actually was offered a plea deal at one point. They turned down, and he said, "Oh, I didn't kill anybody," and they know it. The prosecutors know I didn't kill anybody, and he turned down a plea deal, and instead he ended up with death. Everybody knows the name Ray Hinton, right? So Ray and my dad were in Jefferson County at the same time. They were prosecuted by the same 2 guys, and then they went to Holman just within a couple of months of each other. But just to kind of back up what Gary was saying, Ray, I've talked to Ray since he got out. And Ray will tell you there are 5 guys on death row right now that he is convinced beyond any doubt are innocent. And then there are more than that there are a lot of questions about. There's a lot of question marks. So my dad went to death row. He was there for 17 years. He came to the Christian faith while he was in the county jail. And I know I asked Ray about it. Ray said it was like a different person when he came in high and had just been a part of this crime versus, even weeks later, it's like a different person entirely. So he actually preached, they called it Life Road Church. We met on Monday nights. And my dad preached there for a long time, including the Monday night before he was executed. So he had a date in 2002. It was supposed to be the last use of the electric chair. And they ended up getting a stay from the Supreme Court, the Eighth Amendment stay because of the electric chair. But we got to, at that time, they did executions at midnight. So about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we got that word down from the Supreme Court. So we were less than 8 hours away from it. So you talk about the torture of going through the cycle, and somebody like Kenny who got further than that, they actually tried to kill him and couldn't do it. And you talk about the anguish and the torture that goes along with that's real. So we fast forward another year, and they switched to lethal injection, and my dad was the second man that Alabama killed by lethal injection. And I will never forget that day, of course. I did not witness it. He had married while he was there, and his wife and a friend witnessed it. So when they were being taken back to the witness area, they followed in the hearse that said Alabama Department of Forensics on the back that was there for the body. So they got to follow that in. And then the van carrying the press pulled up beside them, and apparently somebody was telling a great joke because everybody in there was laughing and cutting up while they were sitting there waiting to watch their loved one die. And after my dad spent his last few minutes with an old Mennonite pastor there. We Care is a Mennonite run organization, so good friends of mine there. So he spent some time with an old Mennonite pastor, and as they walked him from the death cell to the execution chamber, the last thing that he did was to share his faith with the guards that were walking him back to kill him. And the last thing he said when he was strapped to the gurney was forgive them. So that's the kind of person that they killed that day. And the thing that one of the guards told his wife later was, I hope you're not planning to get involved with another inmate after this. So that's the kind of kindness from ADOC. So I'm going to take a little side path here, Abe, if you'll indulge me for a minute, and you'll understand why when I get to the end of it. I actually did in prison ministry for several years up at Limestone Correctional Facility in North Alabama. And I'm on the board of directors of a reentry center for guys who get out. So when we talk about ADOC, this is an organization that is marked by gross incompetence. That is the rule and not the exception in ADOC, and often malice along with it. About a year ago at Limestone, they did a shakedown. They bring in a state team, not the people stationed there, and they look for contraband. They found over $200,000 worth of street value of drugs inside Limestone. And to quote my friend James, who I helped after he got out of Limestone, some of the biggest drug dealers in the state wear corrections uniforms. It's not coming in through the mail or through visitors. It's just the officers. There have been 3 officers arrested in the last 2 weeks. It was in the news from ADOC for drugs and for abuse of position. But that's kind of the norm. And the organization that Gary mentioned hasn't even been able to go into Limestone for a while. They can't muster enough guards at one time to open the chapel and let people come in. But the guys who get out there talk about running knife fights in the dorms. So Alabama, if you didn't know, has kind of an open dorm structure in the prison, so it's not death row, it's general population. So you're talking about a dorm with just rows and rows and rows of bunk beds and 200 to 300 guys in one dorm together, and 1 or 2 officers behind glass watching them, and usually not really watching them. But it's this kind of stuff Gary was talking about. It's running knife fights. It's the guys take one leg out of their pants when they're on the toilet so they don't get jumped. It's and horrifying stories that our guys coming out to the reentry center told me, stuff I don't even want to repeat in front of people. Just horrific abuses. And but that's what ADOC is. If you're talking about an organization that is grossly incompetent at everything they do. So my point is, why do we think that this organization that is literally ruled unconstitutional twice now by the federal DOJ, why do we think they are capable of coming up with a new execution method and carrying it out safely? Who in the world thinks that when they can't do the basic operations of a prison, thinks that they can do this new thing? And why would we spend more money doing this when we can't even keep our prisons at a basic level of safety? ADOC gets 1/4 of the state's general fund for us to have the worst prison system in the developed world. And yet they're gonna spend money trying to come up with new ways to kill people, which we know they are not competent to do. So why would anybody, even people who support the death penalty, why would they think that ADOC can't do this? It's capable and competent to do this. There's no reason for it. So I guess that's all I've got to say for right now.
Brother, I heard Brown, I didn't put it together, but I can see in your eyes now. I can see you in his eyes. I mean, I can see him in your eyes. Gary was a good guy. I mean, ever since the time I got there till I left, he was a good guy. He was another one trying to help anybody he could.
He did. They have open visiting rooms in the prisons here, if you weren't aware of that. So I actually met Kenny. I knew Kenny fairly well. He always wanted to talk to me about music and the latest rock music and that kind of thing. And he was a great artist too. I've got a lot of his stuff at home that he had drawn. He was really, really talented. Thank you.
Thank you.
A lot of unexpected moments tonight. I want to know more about Kenny's, Chris, I want to know more about what kind of music Kenny likes. We can play some of that on the Vigilance Friday.
The last time we talked, POD had just hit the bid. That's what he was listening to.
What is that?
POD.
Okay, I'm a little. Somebody's got to tell Allie.
I translate.
Yeah, that's going way back.
Wow. So we've heard some powerful testimony tonight, right? And the real question is, what do we do with it? Yes?
Oh, no, I was just touching my arm, sorry.
So the question is, what do we do with it? And, you know, somebody asked a question earlier about where we've abolished the death penalty. I was the field manager in New Jersey, which became the first state to legislatively abolish the death penalty. And, you know, it takes a lot of things, a lot of stars aligning, a lot of ducks getting in the road before you get to a place where you can pass legislation. We're not here in our Congress in the United States. We're not here in this legislature in Alabama and in most other states. You know, it takes a lot of work and a number of tries to be able to pass legislation. But sooner or later, there's a moment where that opportunity comes up. And our challenge then, those of us who know that we oppose the death penalty, what we have to understand is that there's a lot more people out there like us. And death penalty action's vision and modus operandi is, you know, it's not our job to change anybody's minds. The first step is just finding the people who agree with us and getting them enrolled with us in a way that they can know, here's what I got to do. Here's what I can do, right? And that's the question for each of us to ask ourselves. What can I do? One thing that you can do, if you're willing to, is, you know, become a walking billboard. I mean, yes, not everybody wears orange or green, but that's what we have tonight. I've got a couple, depending on the size. But I will give a t-shirt to anybody that will wear one, right? Buttons, we've got a whole bunch of different kinds of buttons here. Especially even when I am wearing one, I would see Gary's wearing one, especially when we pass this around.
One person can make a difference.
That's right. But if you take a couple of these, you know, and you're wearing one of these buttons and somebody says something, what's that about? You can take it off, give it to them, and they can put it on, and then you can put another one on, right? And there's a webpage on some of these buttons, but either way, people can find us. And one way, I mean, I've had people in the grocery store, like the cashier, say, you know, because she saw me, she sees me every week. This is back when I was in Florida, when this particular thing happened, but she saw me every week wearing a button or a t-shirt. And then when her kid needed to write a report about the death penalty, she waited for me to come in and said, hey, we talked about it, you know. And the point is simply that in being consistent in our messaging, and consistently giving people a way to know, oh, there's a connection to the issue. That's how we grow our work. Giving people permission to say, oh, wait a minute, we can be against the death penalty and then do something about it. That's all it is. That's what visibility is all about. That's why we put bumper stickers on the car. That's why we can put a sign in the yard or in the window of our house or whatever it is. And that's why we put future abundance. Why Death Penalty Action raises money. They'll buy this stuff so that we can give it away. And then get more and keep giving it away and keep building the brand of anti-death penalty. We've got a long way to go here in Alabama, but sooner or later, there could be the opportunity. Something will happen, and somebody's going in the legislature is going to, and then there are people in the legislature that are going to step forward to want to create the change that we want to see, and we need to back them too. So one of the things that we can do, we can all just become somebody who's willing to be visible in opposition to the death penalty. And when we meet people who meet us because we're being visible, we can direct them to sign up with the organization in the state Project Hope to Abolish the Death Penalty, Death Penalty Action, or any of a number of other organizations that do this work and be involved. We can invite people to sign petitions. We can always be on the lookout for people who have capacity to help us do this work, either by becoming a volunteer, as Dawson is, or by becoming a donor, as other people in the room are. There are several people here in the room that have written checks 4 figures or more, okay? Because they have the capacity to do so. Most people don't have that capacity, but if you do, we invite that. If you know somebody, we invite that. Not just for us, but for any group that's doing this work. Because it's a challenge to be able to do it and have the resources to do it. So
It's good to be writing people on death row, writing people in
So
prison.
that's another thing that you can do.
Yeah, it helps out a lot.
There's I don't know if there's a group, well, Project Hope will probably set you up with a pen pal. There's also the Death Row Support Project, which is the Death Penalty Action is partnered with. They will also set you up with a pen
Esther
pal.
would set them up. Esther would set them up.
Esther Brown with Project Hope to Abolish the Death Penalty will set up anybody that wants to have a pen pal on death row. And just doing that, like the guy Tom that called me, you know, he calls me every once in a while. We chit chat, and he often has something he wants me to look up on the internet. Or tonight, he wanted to make sure that I knew that the U.S. Supreme Court has denied Kenny his appeal. So nothing in the way legally. But point is, having those relationships help you also understand the issue. So there's lots of things. Chris?
Journey of Hope is doing a journey in Georgia starting next week. So I really encourage you, if you don't know about them, look it up, Journey of Hope from Violence to Healing, and make that short drive and then try and catch 1 or 2 of those events.
They actually are starting tomorrow.
Oh, really?
And yes, but
February
they'll go
3rd
on
or whatever.
for a couple weeks. And
Who is running that now?
What?
Journey of Hope.
So Gary is asking who's running Journey of Hope from Violence to Healing, which was founded by a friend of ours named Bill Pelkey, who died a couple of years ago. The thing about Bill when he died is he was on a sabbatical, forcing himself to remove himself from the organization so the organization could find its own feet. And it was perfect because when he died, it was in the 11th month of that sabbatical, and they had really figured out this stuff. So Bob Gross is the executive director, and they've got a functional board of directors, and they're doing a lot of strategic work in states that have that want to do specific organizing. And that's what we're doing tonight. This is organizing. This is providing the voices of experience, people with stories that none of us want, but who have and can tell them powerfully so that people can understand the issue. Voices of experience on the death penalty. And when we do that, and especially when we can do it in what I like to call a captive audience. So last night, thank you to my cousin Jared over here, we were able to speak in a class at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Small but very committed group of students that they, suddenly have an understanding that here's something we can do. And 2 of them went away with T-shirts and signs and wanted to do something. So 2 out of 7, not bad. And that's the other thing. In any kind of organizing work, most people are busy. Most people have stuff that they're not ready to just stop everything, as you all did, and make it a choice to come and do something that you hadn't planned on 3 days ago. Thank you very much, Julie. We've got a thriving church with 2 or 3 other things happening tonight in this church, and you're the one that stepped up and said, "Yes, I will make space." That's the other thing. I mean, it's always great when you've got 6 months to plan something, but this was locked in on Monday, and here we are, it's Wednesday, right? So that's, look for the open doors and go through them. That was Bill Pelkey's thing. He made a promise to God that he would walk through any door that opened to him, and he always said that if he had thought about that for half a second, he never would have made that promise, because it is the truth. He went wherever he was invited, and sometimes at great expense to himself.
Take it to your churches, because that's the voices that are showing up missing. We need to somehow prick the consciousness of the church and to speak up for the very lowest rung of people in society. When you look at it, like I do as a minister, the states that do the executions is called the Bible Belt. It's very interesting. Like, why aren't we, who would Jesus execute? And we need to ask our pastors, can you do some leadership on that?
So, yes, Joy.
I have a question. So, I was watching a documentary a few months ago, the Innocence Files, where a bunch of regular people get on the internet and prove the innocence of people who are currently incarcerated. And it's called the Innocence Project, right? And we don't have one in Alabama, except Brian Stevenson, he's wonderful. But, there's a lot of hours that go into proving someone innocent. There's a lot of people who love surfing on the internet and, creeping on things. So I'm just wondering why that doesn't exist here, and, if there's a reason for that, is there
You might have an
way
idea
around
about that.
I can say that with what I do, advocating for the wrongfully convicted, with my nonprofit, people here in Alabama, they want to get involved to a certain extent. They want to share the videos, sign the petitions, but like I said, to a certain extent, they don't really want to put themselves out there too much. They're afraid of what other people think too much. They're afraid of public opinion. They don't want to take those risks, at least in this state, from what I've seen.
Well, I'm speaking as a pastor of this state with a very loud and obnoxious voice. Like, please tell me what to do. I'm just asking.
Honestly, I'll give my example. I just started getting into this work in March of last year. And part of the reason that I do this kind of thing is I just heard about a moratorium being lifted. And that was it. It was just something that came across. And I reached out to Esther. I reached out to Abe and the different people. And just got involved, which that sounds easier said than done, but it is as simple as reaching out to someone and finding out, okay, who is on the ground doing the work in the first place, sending an email, sending a message. I mean, so many people have just, I've had a lot of luck just messaging a random account, someone that does type of activism wherever they may be, specifically, Atlanta and Georgia as well as Alabama. And usually, especially people in this type of work, they'll respond. Something about a lot of people in this room is that we like telling you about why we think the things we do. So if you reach out to one of us, we will respond. We will talk to you. So just don't be afraid to make that step. If you want to do something, do it. You agitate, you educate, and then you organize, because you do not wait for progress to happen, you make it happen. And
Abe and I, for about a year and a half, we would show up every Wednesday in front of the legislative building at the state of Ohio and hand out pamphlets every Wednesday. And we would have some great conversations with people out on the street there.
State workers.
That's a good way to start. And just do something regular. Every Wednesday for an hour and a half during the lunch hour, you're handing out pamphlets and talking with people.
And if you really wanted to start something, first you would have to think about a 501c3.
You gotta think about that.
Easy, okay.
I already got one.
You got one, but it's probably not on the Innocence Project.
Yeah.
Then you would have to think about a board of directors. Then you would have to think about a grant writer. You've gotta have money. If you ain't got money, you can't get out there.
But Gary, I wanna just disagree with you a little bit.
All right,
It
so
is true, organizationally, sometimes you gotta get all your ducks in a row, but it doesn't take anything other than the wherewithal to want to start seeing something happen. Obviously, if you wanna raise money, you do have to incorporate, you do have to have a tax status, et cetera, all that takes doing. But it doesn't take anything to begin talking to people about it, to try to organize events. So, Julie, what you and our Paul, is it?
Sure.
Our pastor colleague down here, I'm sure that you're all part of some sort of ministerium in a group of pastors in Birmingham. Let's talk among everybody about having some programming that's ongoing, where we hear from people like Gary, where we hear from murder victim family members, where we do it in a captive audience situation. So tonight, this is what I like to call a see who comes event. We've created a space, put the word out, all of you came, thank you very much. However, even there's many people who wanted to be here and a lot of people who didn't want to be here, but they just couldn't. However, they're coming to church on Sunday morning, or they're going to be in class, right, at school. And that's a captive audience. That's where we get to hear the people that would like to hear it if they could, but they don't have the time, and also the people that don't want to hear it. And they get to, because the teacher or the pastor is putting them, is creating part of the program, as did the professor that invited us to his class last night. They didn't know what they were going to get until they got it, and that's the opportunity that we're providing. So we get to think strategically, what do we do down the road outside of the emergency that we're in right now, where the whole world, literally the whole world, is watching what's happening in Alabama right now and tomorrow. I mean, I'm expecting to see people from France, from
Rome.
I'm talking about reporters that are traveling here, if they can get here. Everybody's having travel problems right now, but with the weather and what. But I know that there's people from England coming, there's people from France coming, there's people from Turkey coming. There were 200 foreign journalists that applied for the one international journalist slot in the witness for the execution tomorrow. The world is watching, and the question is, what's the message they're going to take away? And part of what we've done tonight, yesterday with the rally, is, I'm hoping that if in my view, a measure of success for what we've created, what Death Penalty Action has created, is that when you Google Alabama death row or death penalty or Kenny Smith or anything like that, and you see what comes up, and then you click on images. What we want to do is replace all those images of gurneys and the prison and a murderer with pictures of these messages, right? And that's how we build a presence. That's how we get people thinking, oh, wait. It's like, there's a lot of organizations that have styled their names for alternatives to the death penalty. Okay, and there's a reason behind that. It comes from Virginia, which was the first state to recognize that there was an annual quality of life poll being done by one of the universities in Virginia. And the question was asked, would you prefer the death penalty or life without the possibility of parole, plus restitution? When you ask the question, do you support the death penalty, yes or no, there's a lot of people that support it. But when you ask the question, do you prefer throwing away the key instead, more people support that consistently. Don't know exactly how it applies here in Alabama, but in Virginia, which is the most executing jurisdiction in this country and on this continent in the history of time, then more people support it. So they realize, what if we give the people what they want? And they changed their names. Their name from Virginians against the death penalty to Virginians for alternatives to the death penalty. And what happened when they did that is it changed the entire tenor of the conversations. When they call up a church or a school and say, we'd like to come, we're with Virginians for alternatives to the death penalty, instead of, oh, they're against the death penalty, it's, oh, what's the alternative to the death penalty? And then you get to talk about it. The alternative to the death penalty is throwing away the key. And the thing important to understand about that is if you realize you made a mistake, you got a situation like Gary's, you can rectify it somewhat and help them out. But also, you can come to recognize that the vast majority of the people who commit capital murder, who are caught, who are death eligible, meaning they could get a death sentence, the vast majority of those people don't get a death sentence. They get the alternative of death by incarceration, also known as life without parole. Okay. Now I'll give you a more concrete example of that. I was the field manager in New Jersey. In New Jersey, when we abolished the death penalty in New Jersey, which happened in 2007. But New Jersey's death penalty law was written, I think, in 1981. And between 1981 and 2004, there had been, I don't know how many thousands of murders, but 630 of them were death eligible. Okay? Not every murder is punishable by death. But of the 630 where they were death eligible, they only tried for a death sentence in 230 of those cases. 250, something like that. Okay, so less than half did they even try for a death sentence. They won a death sentence in only 60 of those cases, so about 10%. By the time we abolished the death penalty in New Jersey, all but 8 of those 60 people had their sentence changed to something else. Okay, so fewer than 2%. And this number, pans out across the country. Fewer than 2% of the people who commit murder, who are caught, who are death eligible. That's the main set. Fewer than 2% of the death eligible people end up with a death sentence and stay on death row to the point of execution. And to me, what that means is, number one, it's a very rare thing when we get a death sentence. And then you have to look at the question of why did they get it and not these 10 or 15 other people that committed similar crimes. But also, what are we saying to the victim family when we don't get a death sentence in their case, but that's what we hold up as this is what we have for victim families, except we're not doing it in 98% of the cases. We're telling those victim families, instead, your loved one wasn't valuable enough. That's the message they're getting. And really, it's actually a blessing in disguise. Because when your killer of your loved one is caught and sentenced to whatever it is, it's done. There may be an appeal, but generally, if they get life without parole, that's it. It's done. And you can begin a healing process. There's always going to be that empty chair at the table when the family gathers. Nothing's going to bring our loved ones back. But if we tell you, wait till we kill the guy and then you'll feel better, your healing process is put on hold for decades. And that is the problem. When this execution happens, if it happens tomorrow night, those people who are young boys when their mother was killed, they think they're going to get some magic wand. Maybe they think that, maybe they don't. I don't know. I haven't really listened to their interviews, and we haven't heard too much from them. That's another problem with the death penalty is we're going to make Kenny Smith the most well-known name in the world tomorrow. And how many people are going to know the name of Elizabeth Sennett, his victim, right? So many things we could say. Bottom line, to close us out tonight, is that we're here to lift up your ability to do this work. And this is just the beginning of a conversation. So if you want to do something, let's talk about what that could be. Maybe it's convening another meeting here in Birmingham to bring more people and talk about creating something. And you don't have to create a huge new entity. You just have to decide we're going to do something. In fact, when I went to New Jersey, as the field manager in New Jersey, I turned around and said, so where are our local groups? They said, we don't have local groups. We don't want local groups. We want our organizer goes and talks to other groups that exist. And we need, and especially at that point, we're in the middle of a legislative campaign. So every week the priorities were changing. You say, you need to go and deal with Senator Smith in District 22 or Senator Jones in District 15 or whatever it is. And then what I would do is I would find the willing churches that would host us. And I would find the Greenpeace group or the Sierra Club group or the Rotary Club or the League of Women Voters, whatever it is that's having their meeting, I go to their meetings. I ask for 5 minutes on their agenda. I say, here's where we are. And again, it goes back to Death Penalty Action's primary focus. Our job is not to change anybody's mind. It's just to find the people that agree with us and give them something they can do. And we get to accept and recognize that most people are busy and don't have time to just stop and do a bunch of stuff, but there's something they can do. And if that is just wearing a t-shirt when they go to the gym, we're putting a bumper sticker on their car, we're putting a sign in their yard, or making a donation and calling their legislator every once in a while, that's enough. But if there's somebody like Dawson, if there's somebody that wants to jump in with both feet and actually make it their thing, Julie, organize the clergy in Birmingham to create something.
Or one thing, tell your people about it. And after a service one day, say, if any of you guys want to stay over, have somebody come tell them. I'd be overjoyed to come and
I was
speak.
gonna ask you to come already.
Yes, yes, I would be overjoyed.
So, yes.
Okay, one last thing for Project Hope. When we're done.
Oh, say it again.
One last little plug for Project
Go,
Hope.
go right ahead,
Yeah,
please.
thank you. Yeah, if anyone's interested, I know we talked about earlier wanting to like write letters and stuff. You can go to Project Hope, Abolish the Death Penalty website. It's just PHADP. You can just go there. You'll find like their mailing addresses, that type of thing, and they'll have all the information you need if you want to send letters to our board members, anyone that's on death row. And then also we're on Facebook, Instagram too, so you can reach out to us and we'll message. If you message the Instagram account, you'll be talking to me. So if you just, want to get any information on how to get involved, how to just jump in, then please reach out to us. We're not going to tell you no. So
And here's the mistake I made last night, so I'm gonna not make that mistake now. When I invite, if you did not receive an email from me about this meeting, then you should pull out your phone right now, go to deathpenaltyaction.org, and just sign one of the petitions at the top of the page and opt into the email list. And if you do that, then next week, after all this dies down, I'm gonna send you a message about how to connect with Project Hope and make sure that you connect in with your local group too. And then we can all talk about what's the next thing. Because we all know, especially as a pastor with the church, you got a whole community that you get to serve with all of the issues. And this is one thing extra. So what's here? And we're going to stop here. So I want to tell you that we've got, these are free to anybody that will actually use them. Don't take it if it's going to be in a closet or in a drawer. Don't wait, then don't. But if you will take one of these signs and somewhere, if we bring in the H sticks, I think they might be upstairs. There's especially this one here that they put this up every week prior to an execution. And then after the execution, take it down, put it away. But you can put up one of these. You can take one of these other signs that are here. I have to pull a couple out and make sure we have them for tomorrow night. But otherwise, if you'll use them, take the signs. I've got t-shirts in sizes small, medium, large, extra large, double X, triple X. We ran out of the 4 and 5Xs yesterday, but we can send them to you. There's nobody here that really needs that size, so we're good. But I've got a t-shirt for anybody that will wear one. Buttons. Don't just take one. Take a handful. Put one on. Make a commitment to wear one once a day or once a week. You're gonna wear your button. And when somebody says, "Hey, what's that about?" You can tell them about it. You can tell them that you met this guy, Gary Drinkard. You met this guy, Chris Brown. You can share their story because they've got stories that none of us want, but they're powerful stories, right? And you can take off the button and hand it to them, and then put on another one. That's organizing 101, and that's what we're about tonight. So. And of course, if you have the capacity and you want to help us pay to do this work, then we're accepting donations as well. And so is the church, and so is Witness to Innocence, and so is Project Hope to Abolish the Death Penalty. Thank you. One last thing. This is just the icing on the cake tonight. Those of you who are here early saw that 2 of the local TV stations came and are doing a report about this. And what that means is it's not just the picture of the gurney and, oh my God, we're gonna kill this guy. But here's people doing something about it. So watch. It was channel 6 and channel 13. Okay, so watch for what they do, and then get online, find the story, share it on your social media so more people see it. Because that's the difference of the story in Birmingham tonight is there's people doing something about it.
Which one are you?
The Ghost 6 Newsroom is with NPR.
Oh, that's great. So NPR is in the room. Thank you very much. And thank you for know, you were trying to come last
Yeah,
night,
I'll
and that
check
didn't
my-
work
yes,
out.
I will.
There we are. Okay, Gary's got the 8 stick. So with that, great. Thank you all very